All right, welcome back, people. I was going to do this video yesterday, but I was feeling really sick. I'm still sick today, so I apologize if I'm sounding nasally, but I really wanted to get this video today. So today I'm going to talk about how I can't even begin to understand how Terrell Owens isn't yet in the Hall of Fame, or at least being heavily considered for the Hall of Fame. There's many players, receivers specifically, in the Hall of Fame who he is clearly way better than of a football player. So I'm going to go over that. I'm going to go over why he should be in the Hall of Fame, and I'm going to compare him to people who are in the Hall of Fame who he's better than. Like, clearly better than. It's not close with a lot of these players. So it's obviously very biased. The people who decide who makes the Hall of Fame, who doesn't, very biased. But I'm going to start by saying he is second all-time in receiving yards and not in the Hall of Fame. That alone, being second all-time in receiving yards in the NFL, should be enough to put you in the Hall of Fame. So that's not enough. He's only behind Jerry Rice in that. Jerry Rice is arguably the greatest receiver of all time. And guess what? Jerry Rice played 3 more seasons than Terrell Owens. So I'm not surprised Terrell Owens couldn't pass Jerry Rice with 3 less seasons. I think he's just as good as him physically, if not better. So second all-time in receiving yards, third all-time in receiving touchdowns, behind only Jerry Rice again, and then Randy Moss. So I also want to mention he's 8th all-time in receptions, but the important comparison I want to make is a common one. Marvin Harrison, of former Colts wide receiver he used to be, having the Peyton Manning in his prime throw him the football. Terrell Owens never had that. The best quarterback Terrell Owens had, I mean, he had Steve Young in San Francisco when he was a young player, and he played excellent with him, and then Donovan McNabb, of course. But and then he went to Dallas and had Tony Romo. But so I'm gonna go over each of the major teams he was on. So I'm gonna start with San Francisco. Played 8 years in San Francisco, and their record with Terrell Owens from 96 to 04 was 73-48. So with him, they won 60% of their games. And then, so that's the 8 years they had him. The 8 years after they had him, they went 52-76, so only 40% of their games. 60% compared to 40%, so that's the first one. Next, he went to Philadelphia in 2004. He played for the Eagles, helped them get to the Super Bowl. By the way, he did help them get to the Super Bowl, and he played in the Super Bowl on a broken leg and had 9 catches for 122 yards. So I don't want to hear anything about Marvin Harrison in the Super Bowl when he didn't play in the Super Bowl on a broken leg and catch 9 balls for 122 yards. So in the year and a half that Terrell Owens was on Philly, their record was 17-4. That's 81% winning percentage. The year and a half after he left, I think leaves are falling. It's definitely autumn. There's leaves falling on my head. So, yeah, 17-4, the year and a half that they had him, and then the year and a half after he left, 12-13. So that's 81% compared to 48%. And then third, he went to Dallas. He played for them for 3 years. In the 3 years that Dallas had him, they went 31-16. In the 3 years after they had him, 25-23. So Dallas was the best team after Terrell Owens left compared to the other two. They won 52% after he left, but even that's not good. So the teams, when T.O. played for them, averaged a 68% winning percentage. And then for the same amount of time of years after he left, 68% compared to 46%. So I'm sure there's a correlation there. If Terrell Owens is on your team, you are more likely to win. This guy is a big, strong, 6'3", 230-pound wide receiver who is not slow by any means. So, played the Super Bowl with a broken leg, 9 catches, 122 yards. They only lost by 3 points. And I think it's important to mention some of the players who have actual, real-life, off-the-field issues regarding like actual, real problems, such as domestic violence, murders, drugs, things like that, which T.O. did none of. So the first name, and this name is extremely controversial, obviously, O.J. Simpson is in the Hall of Fame. Most Americans generally accept that he killed his wife and got away with it, and this guy's in the Hall of Fame, just chilling in the Hall of Fame, and Terrell Owens is not. And I'm not going to talk about O.J. as a player. He played in the 60s and 70s, honestly, way before my time. Also, his competition was different than T.O.'s, so I can't exactly make that comparison as players. And I'm sure O.J. Simpson was a ridiculous running back in his day, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because he was just such a great football player, even though he's, you know. So the other big name that's really important, and this is ridiculous, you might have seen him on NFL Network within the few years after he retired from the football league. The safety Darren Sharpe. He worked for NFL Network for a few years after he retired from the league. He's currently serving an 18-year prison sentence for pleading guilty to drugging and raping multiple women in multiple states. 16 women to be exact. He's not in the Hall of Fame. He is on the ballot to become a Hall of Famer, and Terrell Owens is not. And I'm not positive. I know Darren Sharpe was a great safety, very hard-hitting safety. He wasn't as good as T.O. was at his position. T.O. is arguably, in my opinion, at least a top 3 wide receiver of all time. Darren Sharpe is definitely not a top 3 safety of all time. And look what he did, and his name is on the list, and Terrell Owens is not. There's definitely some people on the panel who are voting for who's going to be in the Hall of Fame and who's not, who just have personal biases against Terrell Owens and just don't like him as a person. It's obvious because you have murderers like O.J. Simpson, you have rapists like Darren Sharpe, who are closer to the Hall of Fame, if not in it, compared to Terrell Owens. So I just can't help but notice this biasness. I mean, I'm biased in my own way because I've always been an Eagles fan, and that was the closest we ever came to winning the Super Bowl, and other teams are always giving me a hard time because the Eagles haven't won a Super Bowl. They did win the championship before it was called the Super Bowl, like in the 50s, so technically they won, but not in my lifetime, or actually my dad's lifetime. He was born in like 64, so I think they won it before that. But anyway, Terrell Owens deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. When he's on the team, the first 3 teams he was on, they win 68% of their games on average, and then the same amount of time that he was on that team after he leaves, on average, 46%. So Terrell Owens wins games. If we're solely talking about football, this guy's top 2 or 3 receiver of all time. I'm beating a dead horse here, obviously, but Terrell Owens should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think people are going to come to their senses, and it's just going to keep getting more and more ridiculous of players who are not as qualified as him getting in. So if you disagree with me, if you do agree with me, whatever, leave a like, leave a dislike, leave a comment. Most importantly, leave comments. I need comments, I need feedback, I need more ideas of topics to talk about. And yeah, so that's it for today. See you guys next video.